Hello, it's me, Christophe. I'm a strategy consultant specialized in innovation, and today I'm with Dr. Mera at SHA Wellness Clinic. Dr. Mera is specialized in anti-aging medicine, and he leads the internal and anti-aging medicine department at SHA. We're very lucky to be with you today. Thank you very much. How are you today?
Very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
So I've had a career in strategy consulting. I've worked a lot, and I'd like to take your advice on how to continue working hard and having a good life when we are 40 years old, 50 years old. I was an entrepreneur. I have many entrepreneurs around me, and it's always the same question. It used to be easy in the 20s, in the 30s, and then it becomes difficult. And the first sign, I think, is working an entire night used to not be a problem. Working long weeks used to not be a problem. And now with 35, 40, 45 years old, it suddenly becomes harder. What is the reason for that?
Well, the reason is that obviously every 10 years, in terms of decades, we change. Actually, 7 to 10 years, we change dramatically. When you go to the laboratory, did you know that you change completely your cells? All your body changes in 7 years, in a 7 years time. The thing is that every part of the body is different. The brain, for instance, remains for a long period of time, but muscles, bones, skin, they change completely. So every 7 to 10 years, we change. We have to change, and we have to adapt. So this is the only thing that we have. I mean, the process, aging process, is a success, and we have to understand that every 10 years that you survive is a success. But in terms of aging, what happened is as follows. I compare always with the mountain. You know, when you are hiking a mountain, let's go to the Everest, for instance. Depending on every 1,000 meters, you reach a point. And you can reach that point according to the Sherpa's help, the north or the south side. If you take the north, you go climbing with difficulties, and when you reach the first 1,000 meters, then you have a valley that you will get the second 2,000 meters easily. But if your Sherpa says, no, better the south side, and you cannot reach the valley, then you have to stay 2,000 meters climbing with difficulties. We all survive. We are strong enough. If something happened, we have doctors, we have improved a lot. But the problem is the quality of life. The efficiency, the effectiveness of our body changes. Obviously, it's not the same if you go walking 1,000 meters easily that if you go climbing. And this is what happened. So my advice is try to find always the proper side of the mountain. And you have to ask normally an expert, okay? Or because unless you have done this time, but unfortunately, the journey of life is only once, okay? So you have to ask, what should I do? And if you have time, we can discuss what to do every 10 years to continue finding the proper side of the mountain.
Yeah. And taking on the example of the valley, when climbing the Everest, does it mean that at some point a business leader should stop trying to work that hard, that many hours, etc., and take much of a quieter rhythm?
Exactly. First of all, we have to, every 10 years, 7 years, depending on every person, we have to slow down and try to find a way to balance and check up everything. The 7 pillars of health that we have, not only one, the 7, which is nutrition. Am I eating well, healthy, good food, in quality and quantity? This is the first question that we have to answer, normally with an expert, and say, this is the best food according to everyone's circumstances. It's not the same if you are running, if you are having physical exercise, or you are having intellectual exercise. Number 2, exercise, both cardiovascular and strength. We have to ask an expert, normally pay for that. What is your opinion about my body? Should I do this exercise, the other one? This is very important. Every 10 years, we have to adapt, by the way. You cannot continue doing the same exercise that you were doing at your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. Every age, every decade has a different exercise. Ask the expert. not necessarily a doctor, you have many professionals, even friends that they know, they have, really remember the journey of life, they are older than you and they know, when I was 30, I did that and it worked, it didn't work, something like that. But better if you go to an expert. Here in SHA, what we have is the possibility of a conductor of the orchestra, they can know the team of experts and he can conduct. And this is what I do. Sometimes they ask me, what do you do in SHA? Well, I'm the conductor of the orchestra. So I take the group of dietitian, the group of exercise personal trainer people. The third point is the stress management. It's absolutely essential. Even if you are very strong, you have to plan. Don't live. I ask sometimes people, really, really important people, multitask activity, 40,000 employees, and I say, what do you do for stress? And you will be surprised the answer. You say, nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. All the more if they are good at managing.
Chaotic reaction to stress. And they feel invulnerable and they think that the stress is something that they cope with, and it's not. And when there is an earthquake, then they notice that they cannot cope with the stress. So again, we have to go to an expert of any type. Normally we use here from the Eastern countries, that expert in terms of yoga, meditation, pranayama, tai chi, a lot of activities that you can do easily at home or with some help, and you can learn to do that, breathing lessons and these sort of things, and it helps a lot in terms of depending on the type of stress that you have and how you cope with that. Because stress is not only the problem is the resilience, how resilient you are. I have seen some patients say, wow, multitask activities, a lot of problems. And say, wow. And we check here the stress, by the way, we have a couple of machines to check the stress, both physical and mental, and well, no stress. And say, I don't feel stress. Because the stress depends not only on the intensity of the stress, you remember that old tale for children, that there depends on the type of house that you have, the wolf can take you or not, the pig. You remember that. If it is made of wooden, if it is made of bricks, it's completely different. If you are strong, nothing happens. But if you are not so that strong, you need. So discuss with someone what is your strength and try to do things. In these type of things, I always recommend, this is the triangle normally. And the fourth, making more square than a triangle, is the sleep. It's very important. Leaders, entrepreneurs, they have multinational activities, and then they are in New York and have in Zurich and also Tokyo, and it's impossible to sleep that way. So they also fly a lot, they change meridians, and this is obviously a big problem for try to keep it. So this is the other problem. And we have to rest a minimum of 40 hours per week. This is a minimum. Ideally 50 hours, and you have to adapt. Naps also count. So something that you should know is that if you have a nap in a plane or you have a nap in your office, it also counts, but you have to sleep 40 hours. Nobody can. There is a lot of research, huge body of research, that if you do not sleep 40 hours per week, you pay. You pay life. How? Gray hair, wrinkles, weakness, these sort of things. So this square is very important to try to use the Pareto rule. You remember the Pareto rule? That 80% of what you do depends only on 20% of the things that you do. So try to do small things. So I call the $1 million tips, for instance, for food. What should I do? Well, I can give you a lot of information, but normally in the Pareto's rule, I would say only 20% of them are really necessary and really effective to impact on 80% of the results. For instance, miso soup, breakfast, fasting, intermittent fasting, these sort of things according to everyone. So personalization is essential here. So this is the square, and there in the basement, there are 3 other problems that we test at every year, every decade, and we have to adapt. Number 1, hormones. The hormones are completely different. When you are 20, you are full of testosterone, everything is all right. When you are 30, 40, you start to reduce the testosterone, you start to gain weight, the weight keeps your insulin and cortisol and so on. So we have to adapt according to the decade of your life and according to your situation. The hormonal balance is very important in women particularly, the type of people that we have now in the world of finances and so on, at the age of 45 to 55, this decade is tremendously difficult for them. And now what we do is substitution, hormonal substitution. We do bioidentical hormonal substitution. This is essential for them. And for men the same, because as we don't have menopause, we don't have periods, we never know exactly. Every day, I'm 45 years now as a doctor, every year I see women with earlier menopause. Today, I have seen one, 38. She was having a lot of symptoms that she was referred to a psychiatrist because the doctor find nothing. She say, my head aches, I feel bad, my mood, my temper, blah, blah, blah. And what happened?
It's not something that typical doctors measure either. So.
No, but particularly because you don't expect that problem at this age. But it's something very curious. We are extending the longevity with not big effort, but we are reducing the sexual life, okay? This is essential. So we have to substitute. There is no other reason.
And even for men in this case,
Absolutely.
Because they have the same problem, except it's less known about.
Women, we don't realize that. And when I ask people, well, how is your sex life, for instance, and everyone say, perfect. Sometimes the wife or the partner say, well, perfect? No, it's not exactly that way. But we ignore that it's failing, that what you say, 20, 30, we think that is perfect. But when I'm saying not only the sex life, this is the peak of the iceberg. I'm talking about strength, stamina, endurance, projects. This is testosterone, And when you don't have this, you don't have testosterone. I can see a person with a low testosterone at kilometers, because the way that he speaks, the way that he talks, the way that he pronounces certain words, this is because there is no testosterone. It's not good to have too much either, okay? Some people inject or put that. We have to adapt, and this is very tricky. Hormones are tricky. We have to give exactly the dose that you need. And there are 2 points to find the 7, which one of them is toxins. We put now in the body a lot of things, knowing that we do that. Cigarettes, vaping, drugs, weed, marijuana, all types of this, cocaine, drugs, legal or illegal, because many people love to take tablets, and some of them, they need tablets for, depending on the age, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholesterol. Well, sometimes you have to see and take 10 tablets for this. So this is problem for your liver, problem for your lungs, problem for your gut. You change your flora and so on. But sometimes there are type of toxins that you don't realize that you introduce. This is a real problem because, if you use cocaine now and then, well, you say to the doctor, I need, but what about the rest? I'm talking about mercury, arsenic, things that you find in the food. So what we have to do? Every year, 6 months, 2 years, depending on everyone's, and the level of toxins, on the environment, detox. Identify substances. Now we have a wonderful capacity to identify these toxins. Here we have tests of all types in the stool, the urine, the blood test, the skin, the hair. We found everything in any moment. Not only the real toxin, but the most important, remember that we are in type 2 medicine. So what we identify is risks. We can find not only if you have mercury, but I can see if you have, for instance, more radiation, people who fly. I'm very proud nowadays. When you talk to someone, probably is one of the things that you feel better. You say, I fly a lot. I fly. Every month I go to the States and come back. Well, this is bad. This is really bad. Because there is a toxin that we don't realize that we measure here is radioactivity. Remember that when we are alive on Earth, we have 2 twins planets that they don't have life, unfortunately. What is that? Venus, Mars, they are the same. And you know why there is no life there? Because they don't have atmosphere. We have atmosphere. Well, it's difficult to explain that, but as we have atmosphere, obviously we have approximately 10 kilometers of atmosphere Sometimes Elon Musk tried to go and put the hand outside, but this is ridiculous because
No, but there is this and the magnetic shield
yes,
as well.
magnetic, absolutely. And the most important is that when you go 10 kilometers, you don't have the protection of the sun, and we are alive because we have this protection. If we don't have the protection of the sun, if we live continuously in a plane, you will die immediately, like in Mars or Venus.
Like we see with the air travel crew, etc., where they get much more.
It's very important to do that, number one, because when you are in the plane, if there is any cosmic, it's something that happens at random sometimes. If you have a cosmic ray, in that moment, you can take it. And all this radiation that you don't notice will take you. Another thing is the instruments. The plane, particularly that we prefer to go on the top, the front of the sphere, never the rear, particularly your clients, always in the, and what is there? All the communication centers. So all the radioactivity of this machine that there is really high is receiving you. I have the capacity to detect, just with the hair analysis, what is, and divide by the frequency of the length of the wave, and see if it is due to laptops, due to mobile phones, due to cosmic radiation, due to any other type of sources like radiotherapy or something like that. This is amazing. We can separate that. And obviously, the problem with radioactivity is that, unfortunately, the radioactivity, the half-life of the radioactivity is longer, much longer than our life. So you died, and I continue. If I have a detector, a Geiger detector, you die, and I continue detecting the radiation, even though. So we don't realize how that. For instance, brain tumors. When I started as a doctor, I used to see in my private consultation one patient every year of a brain tumor, And now I see one every month, 10 times more. There is no explanation for that, but there is a lot of research trying to blame on radiation, particularly the planes.
It's important to mention it's not just the detection. It's just, there's just many more than there used to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have to be extremely careful with that and try to be aware of the problem. And plan with the pandemic, as a doctor, I have learned that we don't need so many flights, We used to. Doctors as a community probably is the group of, people that fly more. If you ask in a plane, please, is now a doctor. It happened to me recently. Someone is having, choking for air, any doctor, I was sleeping and my wife say, you are a doctor, please, you are calling you. I say, okay. And I wake up, and then I went to see that patient. There were 3 doctors, one of them young, and he said, what? We don't need that. Maybe you ask entrepreneur, and then maybe someone, okay? We plan a lot. But you know what is the reason? Not necessarily. It's not necessary. We want to take some days off. We want to take the wife, and they say, okay, we'll rest for a while. But it's not necessary. So I always discuss with my patient and say, think about that, delegate, because this is not an honor. It's not, you don't feel proud to fly so much. It's exactly the opposite. Now that you can, pay for that, delegate, and send someone who received that radiation, okay? Unless, obviously, I understand that there are situations where you really need to stay, talk to clients, talk to providers, I don't know. I'm not expert in that, but as much as you can, don't feel proud of that. It's exactly the opposite. You have to change a little bit. And the last point is the microbiota. We pay a lot of attention now. It's amazing. This axis brain, gut or gut brain, we have in the brain 90% of the neurons, but the other 10% is in the gut. So some of the things that explain mood, activity, endurance, aging process depends on the gut. So we have to take care of our gut. How? Again, we have to do that. Healthy food, but we have to discuss with an expert what type of, according to our way of life, according to our food, and according to our age, what type of probiotics, prebiotics, postbiotics we have to take. And unfortunately, the food is not enough. I wish we can take only food to treat or to prevent everything. But the life that we have and the food that we can find is not enough. So we have to use sometimes supplements. We love supplements according to obviously everyone. So in summary, this combination of if everything goes neatly, exercise, diet, sleep, stress management, hormones, toxins and detoxification and microbiota, then you can live forever. Well, forever. We are designed for 120 years. In the laboratory, we can find out with cells, you put human cells, and the human cells divide 60 times. So 1, second generation, 2, second, third, 4, until the 60th. At the 60th generation, normally, we stop in a state that we call senescence. And this is the equivalent to a person that is about 100 or more, the centenarians, that you can see, you look at him and he's perfect, but in any moment a catarrh can kill that person. You know, this is the situation. But remember that the design is 120 years. But there is something that is called, I found an electric car. I try to find an electric car because I go, I have a distance and I really want to change my carbon, you know, print and so on. And I say, I went to the dealer and say, tell me, I need a car with maybe 500 kilometers because I go to Madrid and we live here in Alicante. It's more or less the distance. I don't want to stop in the middle of nowhere to try to plug my car. You say, okay, don't worry, I have a car. 600 kilometers, perfect. You say, wow. I tried that car and the first day when I went 300 kilometers, I stopped. He said, wow, it's impossible. What happened to that? And he said, excuse me, I was complaining officially. I said, well, you are kidding me. You know, this is not fair. You say 600 kilometers and just 50%. So I went to speed. Were you 80 kilometers per hour? I said, oh, man, I go 120, which is the maximum because I was in a hurry. Were you alone? No, my wife was with me. Oh, two person. I said, what about bags? How many pieces of luggage? I said, 3. I said, wow. And you want to have 600 kilometers with it? It was planned. So the same happened to us. We are planned to live 120 years in the best conditions ever. But it's impossible. You know, it's impossible. So we live 80% of that. Pareto's rule. 80%. And 80% of 120 is?
Well, it's around the 90 years old, I guess, right?
And it's what we are living now. You know, there is very little room for improvement in longevity. So people ask me, doctor, I want to live longer, but this is really hard. You know, now the expectancy of life in Switzerland, in Spain, or in Japan is that. So what should I do? Nothing for that. What we have to do is improve the quality of our life. Remember the Everest. If you go to your 70s, the 70s is a very important age, the 50s and the 70s. If you reach your 50s in a good shape, you go to your 70s without any problem. Remember the valley. And if you reach your 70s in a good shape, perfect cognition, muscle, strength, and so you go to your 90s without any problem. When I say that, it's without doctors, without 3 or 4 operations, without chemotherapy, without radiotherapy. But if you don't do that, and you reach your 50s in a bad shape, you use drugs, you don't eat, overweight, diabetes, that, well, you survive because we survive until your 90s, you know, but with 3 or 4 operations, 4 or 5 chemotherapies, you know, and these sort of things, maybe a bypass, these sort of things. But we survive now. We doctors are very good, so we survive. But the problem is quality of life. And the sooner we start, the better the result. So this is something that you have to transmit to young people because they don't understand that the process of aging starts at the 25. When we are 25 is the maximum level of capacity in all types, mentally, physically. People in Switzerland, they know because when you have a beautiful watch and you have to, obviously, a small screw can destroy that jewel, you know. And then if you have tremor, obviously you destroy that. 25. If you are 26, you say, thank you, go to the, you know, to the another department, but they cannot use screwdrivers. You have to be very, with surgeon, it happened the same. We have a limited time because tremor is a big problem for that. So 25 we start. 35, remember, 10 years. 35 is a big change. 45 is even bigger. I compare that and using people who are wealthy and they can afford it with, until you're 45, you fly in premier class, so it's Emirates or Air France, you go in a bed, you have shower, these sort of things. Champagne, everything is for free. You don't pay life anything. You survive without any problem. But when you reach that age, then the crew say, sorry, business class, you cannot fly premier. So you have good, you don't have unlimited luggage, you can have certain 2 bags of 32 kilos or something like that, and so on. And the next decade, you go to tourist class. I'm now concerned if I can fly, this is a problem, you have to change the flight for the train. But the frustrations in life appears when you don't meet your expectations. So it's another point with the mental activity. You have to be the top of the world in every moment of your life. But don't try to be 40 when you are 50. This is another point, because you can have problems, frustrations, because it's very hard to do that. But you can do many things. I can, for instance, give you some examples. How old are you now?
I'm 44.
44. So I'm 20 years older than you. I want to show you something curious, that you don't have to be, for instance, for sports, you don't have to be a bodybuilder. I want to give you some sport tests. We love testing things. Why? Because the only way to improve something is to test it and know that it's bad. How can you improve your bank account if you don't know that it's in red color? So you have to see that. And so let's see how strong you are. According to your weight, we have the average is that you need 50% of your strength in every hand. For one reason, practical reason. If you have a fall, you have to sustain 50% of your body with every hand. Otherwise, the impact of the fall will go to your bones and not to your muscle. If you have strong muscles, you sustain your body, you don't have problems with your bones. But if you don't have that, then you will have a problem. If you have osteoporosis because your hormones are not 100%, then you have a fracture. If it is the hand, you will have 6 weeks probably with a small slap here and nothing happened. But if it is the hip, your life changed dramatically. You can even die. I have had some patients that they stay in bed, they are abroad, in Thailand, in a bad hospital, they retain, you cannot move, you are in bed, they don't give you heparin or something like that, or they don't give you the proper dose, then you have a deep venous thrombosis, then a lung embolism, and you die because of that. So I want to check yourself to see and prove how is that. So you have to do with this machine, you have to squeeze this machine as much as you can until you hear a beep. And we are going to see, you look strong, your weight is good, so I think that you should be strong. How much do you weigh? Can I ask you that question?
Yeah, I weigh 68 kilos.
Wow, perfect. So this is one of the tips. If you are slim, you don't need too much strength. Okay?
Of course, yeah.
So you need only, if you are 68, let's say you need 35 or 34. So I'm sure you can do that. So do that, squeeze that with your right hand and do that. 1, 2, 3. 41. So
I can support myself.
You can support yourself. Or say in other words, you have the strength of 80 kilos. You understand?
I understand.
But I want you to look at me. I'm not a bodybuilder. And I'm 20 years older than you. My weight is more than you, is 70 kilos. But you will be surprised. The most important is that you look at me. I'm trained, but not a bodybuilder. This is what we call snack exercises. I do a snack exercise. So every time that I have time, I do something. I never stay sitting down unnecessarily.
Whether it's in the office,
yes.
at home.
this is something that we will say. It's something like that. It's a very interesting way to train when you have no time. So we will give you tips, snack sport we call, okay? So you can do, for instance, some squats between one patient and another one, or between one problem and another one. You can do some squats, some push-ups, some pull-ups, and that's all. This is for strength. If you look cardiovascular, you need another thing, but I have a small bicycle and I can exercise. But you can see 41, and you see that. Look, what is the number?
Wow, 54.
You can see the difference. Can you be stronger even if you are older or not?
You can.
Absolutely. Without spending hours and hours exercising. Because this is what people say. Doctor, I have no time. How can I do that?
Yeah, you also have no
Look,
time and yet you manage. Yeah.
100 kilos. I use it sometimes when I put, in a party, you say, to the left, 43, to the right, 64. Put all the money and I do that, the pulse. This is something curious, okay? So this is a good example that how we can use the Pareto rules and do 2 or 3 things, but do that properly. It's essential. And that's the reason why we want people here. In a week, we give tips, this $1 million tips, one for every one of the 7 systems, and then you get, not always we can do, let's say I will be happy if you can do 5 of the 7, okay? Not always is possible, okay? But what we do is prevention, try to do that. And treatments. I want to finish with some of the new treatment that we have here, which is the regeneration. There are many ways to regenerate, and there is curious because when I bring this machine, we have brought this machine from Germany. I was always thinking the best way to regenerate people easily because of this process of that. There is a lot of research about that, huge body research, that the aging process mostly depends on hormones, depending on all what we see, but the electric and electromagnetic fields of our body are essential. When you have cancer, the first sign of a cancerous cell, because it's one cell that becomes cancer, is that it loses all the electric and electromagnetic properties. Okay. It's amazing. You take the difference of voltage, you do the difference, and you can see that there are problems, and it depends on the channels of chloride, the channels of sodium, potassium, calcium, all these minerals change. So if we can align these electromagnetic fields in our body, we can easily regenerate and prevent many things. And we use it, we have that machine here. In the past, we use it in a short parts of your body, particularly interesting for regeneration in the diabetic people with sores. They have sometimes in the feet big sores, and they take hours, days, weeks, sometimes years to heal. And when you use this machine, you can regenerate very well. So we use that example, and now we regenerate. We put that system in a bed, and you can receive all this. What is that? It's plasma. It's called plasma. So we start with the plasma. If you remember from the school, there is the 4th state of matter. So we have solid, liquid, gas, and when you continue increasing the temperature, or you put some high cathodic wave inside, then you transform the gas into plasma. The plasma we don't have on Earth, we don't have plasma. We have to produce it. But we have the plasma, for instance, in the universe is practically plasma. Everything.
Absolutely.
And the plasma, that's the reason why the constellation and so on. So we put that and we transform that. And I want to show you what happened. It's a very simple experiment. So this is a small machine, the same one. You can see, I don't know if the camera can show that,
yeah,
but you can see the different colors. Can you put your hand here, please? Look, how can I align completely your electromagnetic field?
And I feel that it enters
Absolutely.
somehow.
If you can see that from this point of view, you can see that all my fingers, detect this field and they attract and they align. So we give sessions of 1 hour. Normally 1 is not enough. Normally a group of 5. And we have wonderful results. Some of them you can see that, but some of others you just prevent. It's a very easy way to regenerate. Apart from obviously other systems we have here, we can stay. We need another hour to discuss all the treatments that you have. But I want to mention, this is the newest one. This is really, really interesting. No side effects, few side effects. Practically, we have to select certain people with some devices like pacemaker
and so on.
We cannot do that. But this is the only thing. And it's really useful to regenerate your muscle, regenerate your liver, regenerate particularly the skin. During this process of plasma, you produce ozone, photons, and then it's particularly useful for renovation of it. But in the Pareto's rule, the best way to, if you have to ask me, what is the thing that you can think that has the highest impact on our health, I will decide definitely one food. And this is, when we eat three types of food. Food that gives you energy and pleasure. Sometimes food that gives you only pleasure, but no energy and not any benefit. And food that gives you mostly rejuvenation and acts on the four types we call superfood. The list of superfood is short, probably no more than 20 or 25. And in the anti-food, we can say the number one is avoid sugar. If you have to say, give me one thing that summarizes all what we have talked, avoid sugar. Avoid sugar completely. And try to substitute the sugar for proteins and other types of carbohydrates that they are not simple and they can be so sweet. And in the group of superfood, and that's the reason why we use it, and that's the reason why Japanese are on the top of this list of longevity and the top of energy, stamina, and weight. It's very funny because when the patient comes to my office and he knows that I'm the conductor of the orchestra, he said always the same, doctor, I want you that you take me some years of age, okay? Maybe 5 or 10 if you can. I say, okay, no problem. I say, and what about weight? 10 or 5 kilos, the same, So in Japan, they can get it naturally. And this superfood is called miso soup. It's amazing, the properties of miso soup. Do you try some miso soup? You take it?
I tried. So I loved miso soup forever, yes. But I never realized all the effects until I arrived here and the explanation, and it's amazing indeed.
Yes, and the most important is because it goes to 4 pillars, First of all, blocks your appetite, which is very good to control. Number 2, detox. There are a lot of research about this, detox. Number 3, digestion, probiotics, because it's full of probiotics. And number 4, this longevity and regeneration. So this is amazing. We have to try to take this. But remember that it helps. I compare with the shower. Why do you take a shower every day?
Well, I want to stay clean.
Clean, refresh, and so on. What about if you take a shower once a month, for instance? Every time that you see a nice shower in a spa, what happens?
It would be much less efficient. I would be 90% of the time dirty and not fresh.
So you have to do that every day. Absolutely. And the miso, every day. Exactly the same. If you want the effect of the miso, you have to take it every single day. It's not that every now and then I will take it because you don't have the effect. So all the tips that we are going to give to your clients is this way, some small things that they can do every day. For instance, to get this strength, every single day, you have to do a small snack of exercise. And after many years doing that, maybe you have to be my age to get this, because you need every day. This is my challenge for you. And I always put me as an example to take to people that is much younger, that it's not necessary if I am this way, this is strength, because I started at your age, as you can understand. It's not I started yesterday. You cannot do that. So you have the sooner, the better you start. And it could be the conclusion of what you say. Okay?
That's really interesting. Thank you so much for the
insights.
insights.
You're welcome. Very welcome.
Thank you very much.